There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with my Novellas in November TBR. I'm laughing because I am going to have to quit my jobs and not sleep to do all the reading in November that I would like to do. This Novellas in November readathon or reading challenge just kind of fell in my lap yesterday, and I have just been seized by my enthusiasm for reading a whole swack of novellas in November. This is the brainchild of a new-to-me booktuber. I think he's fairly new on BookTube, but he seems to have maybe have his own blog. Laura Fry has known him and participated in Novellas in November through her blog for a few years, I think. I've been so busy and obsessive about developing my TBR that I haven't had time to do too much investigation. But I have watched approximately 1.5 videos by Rick, whose channel name is Another Book Vlog. He doesn't know me yet, so eventually I'll get him to pronounce it vlog, the correct way. The Sean the Book Maniac way, it's not the correct way. And his announcement video, Novellas in November, I will link below. He is just so natural and speaks with such a calm and macho authority. I just love the 1.5 videos I've seen, and I can't wait to delve more into his channel. And he's a Canadian. I think he lives in Edmonton, maybe, like Laura, where I used to live. Anyway, so the purpose of Novellas in November is, you guessed it, read a bunch of novellas. I have a bunch kicking around here, either on my shelf or on my e-shelves, and a bunch more that I can access through Scribd. So I have a ridiculously long TBR. Before I dive into that, I was just searching for more Canadian novellas, and I happened upon an article which I will link below called The Literary Form That Gets No Respect, and it's a profile of the Canadian writer who I don't think gets much respect because nobody's really ever heard of him, John Metcalfe. His name's familiar to me, but I don't think I've ever read anything. He's known primarily as a short story writer, but this article, which I will link below, says that really he should be known for his novellas. And in 2016, when this article was written, he published a collection of novellas called Vital Signs. So if I don't have enough to keep me going with all the books I'm going to tell you about, that book is available to me here in Tokyo through Amazon Japan, and I might have to pick it up because this article is fascinating. And it says, yes, he's known for short stories, but really his métier, if I'm pronouncing that French word correctly, it's the novella where his fiction-making facility finds its fullest fruition. Oh dear. Cheat here, that was a bit of over-the-top alliteration. However, he does have some interesting points in this article. I'll just read a little bit of this, okay? The novella is a betwixt and between form, sitting halfway between the novel and the short story. Novels have long been the most popular narrative vessel, engaging readers in an extended, immersive experience. But the pleasures novels offer, more often than not, come at a price. Henry James's indictment of the Victorian triple-decker as large, loose, baggy monsters applies, alas, to all but the finest novels. Masterpieces aside, the novel's cardinal sin is that its narrative length leads to verbal slackness, langueurs, loss of focus. It's a rare novel that earns every word it uses. Conversely, as Metcalfe has taught us, the strength of the short story is that it can be perfect, just as poems can be perfect. In a great story, every paragraph, every sentence, every phrase, every word exists for a reason. Yet the short story's very shortness can also be problematic, depriving it of the expansiveness and amplitude of the novel's ability to encompass multiple perspectives, and the interplay of tones. For Metcalfe, the novella provides the best of both worlds, the linguistic exactness of the story and the broad canvas of the novel. As he wrote in his 2003 memoir, An Aesthetic Underground, the novella form fascinated me because it could be tightly controlled, page by page, as a short story could, yet at the same time was expansive enough to allow for theatrical effects. Individual scenes could be built with lyric intensity, and then juxtaposed with broad comedy. Broad comedy could be tempered to become intensely moving. Writing novellas was a particularly joyful kind of playing. And then it goes on, I won't read it, but just to paraphrase, Jeet here, who I've disagreed with about 18 and a half times in the passage I just read, or would quibble or take issue with various points, he goes on to say that there's only two masters of the novella form, Melville and Conrad. But he also identifies Alice Munro and Mavis Gallant as short story writers. They're my favorite short story writers in the world, whose peak work was done in the novella form. So that is interesting. So some of their longer short stories he's qualifying as novellas, and I would have to really think about and do a lot of reading, but it's really intrigued me as much as I think this is a very pat in the way it's summarizing and dismissing and dissing the various forms. It's overly simplistic. It does fire my imagination as I prepare to dive into Novellas in November. What say you? So I have a ridiculously long list, and they are basically in the order of priority or in terms of my commitment to reading them. So as I go through the list, as I get farther into the list, I'm going to be very brief in talking about them, because the chances of me getting to them are very slight, because I'm also planning to... Are you sitting down? I'm also planning to participate in Nonfiction November. I'm going to try again, and I have umpteen buddy reads committed to, not novellas and not nonfiction, so it's going to be a fabulous month. Okay, just before I get into my list, Rick defined, and I think it's pretty broadly agreed, that a novella is somewhere under 200 pages. I think Rick said 175 pages. I have been much stricter in choosing books for my TBR, and my cutoff, with a very, very few exceptions, is 150 pages. Just to be realistic, because of all the stuff that all the novellas I'd like to read, and all the nonfiction and all the other buddy reads I have going on, that it has to be 150 pages or less, or I have to have a good reason why. Top priority is Train Dreams by Dennis Johnson, because I started it a few weeks ago on audio, loved it, and then have been swept away by Victober, so I haven't got back to it. It's a novella, so I'm actually going to start over. But whether I do it exclusively on audio or whether I pair it with the ebook, but I am going to start from the beginning with that for Novellas in November. Another priority is Helen Weinsweg's Passing Ceremony, because and I've told this story so many times, but I read a story by Helen Weinsweg, who was a little-known 60-something writer-wannabe in Toronto, I think. Architect's wife, I forget, doctor's wife, started publishing short fiction in her mid-60s and has a very small amount of literary output, but that one story just blew me away, and I've been collecting her fiction and wanting to read more by her ever since I read that story in about 1990. And this is a newly reprinted novella, originally published in 1973, about a wedding reception that turns into a gothic dream. Very short chapters, and reads like a piece of music. So I will definitely want to get to this one. Another one I've been wanting to get to forever is Weep Not, Child, Ngugi wa Thiong'o's debut novel about the effects of the Maui Maui uprising on the lives of ordinary men and women in Kenya, originally published in 1964. I read one volume of his memoirs, which I really liked, have not read any of his fiction, and want to start with this one, so I will next month. The next one is a Welsh novella, Country Dance, by Margiad Evans. First published in 1932, and this is written in English, and was recommended to me very highly by my new Welsh booktuber buddy, Charlotte of Tired Mama tries to read, and it's available to me on Scribd. It's about 110 pages. I'm going to be buddy reading it with Ange from Beyond the Pages, and maybe Charlotte. I'll have to talk to Charlotte. So Charlotte, you're not locked into that one, but it's a historical novel set in the late 19th century in the countryside, and its young female protagonist is mixed Welsh and English, and a tale of passion, murder, and cultural conflict. Oh my. If you notice that I seem to shift every so often while you're watching this video, it's because I left the room for a minute and couldn't remember exactly where on the bed I was sitting, often to refill my wine glass. The next one is also a buddy read. This is an Australian novella, The Spare Room by Helen Garner, and I will be buddy reading this in November. It was already planned before I knew about novellas in November with Natalie of My Reading Days, a new favorite channel of mine. Please check her out. I'll put a link in the show notes. She does the most wonderful vlogs. And I think Jack the Bibliophile, if I've got the channel name right, first told me about this on one of his videos, and when Natalie mentioned it, I said, let's buddy read it. So we're gonna. And it's about two friends. Helen offers her spare room to her friend Nicola, who's dying of cancer, and Nicola refuses all conventional medical treatments. And so it's about that dynamic and that topic. It sounds very interesting. It's 192 pages, but I'm going outside of my 150 page limit because I had already arranged the buddy read, and that's fine. And I just picked this up at a used bookstore today in the Koenji district of Tokyo. I took you to the bookstore on a recent Friday Reads. This is called Snakes and Earrings by Hitomi Kanehara, and it won the Akutagawa Prize in 2004, and she was only 21 years old when she wrote it, translated from the Japanese by David James Karashima. It's about 100 pages, and I have to peel the price tag off the back so I can see what the hell it's about. It's about a 19-year-old beautiful, bored, young Japanese woman who meets somebody in a bar who mesmerizes her with his forked tongue. Okay. Snakes and Earrings. One of my favorite Japanese novels, or I guess I should say novellas, is The Hunting Gun by Yasushi Inoue. And I read it a couple years ago, and it's just a perfectly taut novel about a love triangle. And I've never read anything else by Yasushi Inoue, and I hope to change that during Novellas in November. Another of his novellas, Bullfight, which won the Akutagawa. I need to find out how to pronounce that name, since I've mentioned it twice in this video, and I've never heard it pronounced. This is embarrassing. I checked all the writers' names, didn't think to check this guy's name. Here we go.
Ryunosuke Akutagawa. Ryunosuke Akutagawa. Ryunosuke Akutagawa.
Akutagawa. Okay. Akutagawa. So Bullfight won the prestigious Akutagawa Prize in 1949, and it is about a newspaper editor who decides to organize a bullfight, but things don't quite go as planned. It's only 95 pages. I think I should definitely get to it. Another one that I really would like to get to, and it's 180 pages, but I've really wanted to read it since I read my second most favorite novel of all time, A Constellation of Vital Phenomena by Anthony Marra. Haji Murad by Leo Tolstoy, a novella that really functions as an intertext for A Constellation of Vital Phenomena, and Marra quotes from that novella as the epigraph, or as one of the epigraphs for his novel, and I did my epigraph tag based on that, which I'll link in the show notes. So I really need to read Haji Murad, which is about a Chechenian rebellion in the 19th century. Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. I studied it in grad school. I remember absolutely nothing about it. It's available to me on audio via Scribd, so I will definitely be listening to that as a reread. I've had this book on my shelves forever. This is a collection of 2 novellas by Deborah Levy, whose Hot Milk I loved a couple of years ago. It was nominated for the Women's Prize or the Booker or something. Really, really liked it, loved it, and picked up this 2 novellas in 1 volume. One is called Beautiful Mutants, and the second novella is called Swallowing Geography. Each is about 100 pages or less. I should get to 1 or both of these. I would sure like to. Alright, from now on I'm going to be much briefer because I'm now at 25 minutes. Once I edit it down, it'll be less, but I'll just mention a bunch of other ones that I have access to via Scribd or whatever. The Muscle Feast by Birgit van der Beek, 112 pages, a modern German classic. The 39 Steps by John Buchan. I picked up another of his novels at the used bookstore today, and I struggled to pronounce his name. I'd never heard it. I know how to pronounce Buchanan, so is it Buchan? But I've checked. It's Buchan. Am I right? John Buchan. Set during the First World War, an expatriate Scot returns to London after a long stay in Rhodesia. A Japanese novel, Something Strange Across the River by Kafu Nagai, first published in 1937. The description on Scribd is just doesn't say anything, so I don't know what it's about. Alina Bronsky's Baba Dunja's Last Love, 150 pages. I read her The Hottest Dishes of the Tartar Cuisine a year or 2 ago. Absolutely loved it. She's a Russian-born German writer, and this novella to do with radiation levels near Chernobyl. Baba Dunja takes a bunch of her neighbors who live near Chernobyl after the nuclear meltdown, and she takes them to a new place to start a new life. Under the Tripoli Sky by Kamal Ben Hamada, a Libyan novel about the pre-Gaddafi society on the verge of change, 130 pages. Going back to the pre-Victorian 19th century, Castle Rackrent by Maria Edgeworth. I've never read it. It's like 90 pages. Big Ray by Michael Kimball. He's an American writer. He's around the same age as me. It's 150 pages. Somebody who I follow or am friends with on Goodreads gave 5 stars to this novel, and I remember it because that particular friend, I think she and I originally connected on Litzy, is always giving 1 stars or 2 stars to everything she reads, and she gave this book 5 stars. It's about Big Ray's temper and obesity define him, but when he dies, his adult son must come to terms with the memory of his irascible father. I Am a Truck, a Canadian novel, 176 pages, but I've got it on my Kindle, by Michelle Winters. It was nominated for the Giller last year. A tender but lively debut novel about a man, a woman, and their Chevrolet dealer. This little novella I've had on my shelf forever. Somebody I taught with gave it to me. The Viceroy of Ouida by Bruce Chatwin, 101 pages, set in 1812, about a man who escapes his poverty-stricken life in Brazil and goes to Africa and becomes a slave trader. This one I'm very unlikely to get to, but I have it. The Comfort of Strangers by Ian McEwan. I'm unlikely to get to it because I hated Amsterdam so much, and I'm now ready to try another one, but it's going to be On Chesil Beach. On Chesil Beach is under 200 pages, but it's not less than 150 pages, so I'm not going to be doing it for novellas in November, and I don't want to try a different Ian McEwan novel for novellas in November in case I hate it too, because that will postpone me getting to On Chesil Beach for another 5 years. But there's a small chance. And lastly, I don't think I will get to it, but Death in Spring by Merche Rodoreda, a Catalan Spanish writer. I did a page 112 tag on this. Wasn't so taken with the writing or the translation. It's translated by, now that I've said I didn't like the translation, I might as well tell you who the translator is, Martha Tennant. The most recent page 112 collaboration I did was with Anna Bailey Karras, and she sent me a page from another wrote a Rita novel with a different translator that I liked better. But anyway, this is 150 pages exactly, so there is a chance I will get to it. Hey guys, well this is an addendum a couple days later, just to make this more insanely improbable, but I have to add 3 more novellas that have come to my attention or that I've decided to include since filming the video the other night. One is this J.P. Donlevy novel, The Lady Who Liked Clean Restrooms. I included this on my pumpkin tag or whatever, what was it? The Finally Fall tag last weekend. And Heidi of My Reading Life said it sounded interesting. And she identified with the lady in the title. I think I can quote her since it was a public comment on the channel. And so I just said to her yesterday, if you can get your hands on it pronto, let's buddy read it for Novellas in November. And she has since ordered it. So we will be buddy reading this next month. 110 pages. So that one's definitely going to happen. So add that one to the list. The other 2 are much more tentative, but I had forgotten about the queer novel coming out of Greenland. It publication date's November 1st, and it's a novella. It's 192 pages. Crimson by Niviaq Corneliusson. Niviaq Corneliusson, and it's an edgy and unputdownable work of modern literature. Eric Carl Anderson, I believe, was the first person to bring it to my attention. It's on his TBR, so I'm going to read it too, I hope. And I think I might even read it first, the day it drops. And the last one, I was talking on the phone with my mom yesterday, and she went to a launch of the late Richard Wagamese final novel, published posthumously. He died before he could quite finish it. It's just been published. She went to a launch in Saskatoon, and it just brought Richard Wagamese, whose memoir, One Native Life, I absolutely loved, but I didn't get along with the only one of his novels that I've tried so far, but I want to try more. And he has a novella called Him Standing, 136 pages. It's on Scribd, and it's about a young Ojibwe boy learning the art of carving from his grandfather, and gets a little bit supernatural after that. So I would like to get to that in Novellas in November too. Alright, so I have decided at the end of this video, for those of you that have made it all the way to the end, there's going to be a giveaway. A $25, whatever that converts to in your currency, but a $25 American book depository coupon or whatever it is, credit. You just have to guess how many of these or any novellas will I actually successfully read, not including Bales, during the month of November. The answer that's closest to my actual number will win a $25 voucher coupon credit from Book Depository. If there's a tie, I'm not sure what I will do. Anyway, that'll be fun. Will I regret this in the morning? So are you planning to participate in Novellas in November? I am so stoked about this, and looking forward to hearing from the rest of you. Which of these novellas appeal to you? Which ones have you read? Alright, so thanks again to Rick from Another Book Vlog for bringing Novellas in November to BookTube, and I am looking forward to participating. Thanks for watching.